Well, that sucked. It's funny because I was telling a buddy of mine after hearing the news about Chris Middleton, and I told him I actually think this means the Bulls are going to lose Game 3 because of the opportunity being given to them. I didn't say it on the channel because I didn't want people tearing me apart saying, how could I say the Bulls after having such a great game in Game 2 and now the Bucks aren't going to have Middleton? Like, what makes you think that they're going to lose Game 3? Well, if it's any consolation, though, I did tell him that the Bulls are going to win Game 4, but despite me thinking the Bulls were going to lose Game 3, I did not expect they would come out on their own home court for the first playoff game since 2017 and get completely embarrassed in an absolutely non-competitive game. Like, really, from the get-go, this was never competitive. There was really no point in which the Bulls had control of this game. Some very, very small runs to bring it within 20 points, but that was about it. So yeah, this was a bad game. This was actually more than a bad game because it's one thing to lose in a competitive game after winning one in Milwaukee in Game 2, but to flat out lay an egg in a playoff game, no less. It's not like this is a meaningless regular season game where it's just one loss in an 82-game season. No, these are winner-go-home type moments. And the next game is a must-win for the Bulls because if the Bucks take Game 4 and they go up 3-1 heading back to Milwaukee for Game 5, yeah, the Bucks are going to take this series in 5 games, which would be a huge disappointment for the Bulls after winning Game 2 and the Bucks losing Middleton. Yes, most of us had the Bucks winning in 5 anyway, but the circumstances certainly changed a bit after the way they came out and competed in those first 2 games where it looked like the Bulls were going to make this a competitive series. So what happened tonight? Well, let's see. The Bulls lost by 30 points. Yes, they lost by 30 points in a home playoff game. They shot 40% as a team, 26% from 3, only 22 assists, 13 turnovers, and conversely, you had the Bucks lighted up as they finally started hitting their shots. They killed the Bulls on the boards. They let clown-ass Grayson Allen lead the Bucks in scoring tonight, shooting 5 for 7 from deep with 22 points. Like, Giannis didn't even have to take that many shots in this game to be effective. He only took 12 shots, had 18 points, 7 rebounds, along with 9 assists. I mean, this kind of reminded me of that last regular season game in which the Bucks came to town and Giannis wasn't even that engaged on offense. He didn't have a single field goal attempt in the first quarter, I believe, and he just looked like he was sort of taking the night off, getting ready for the playoffs while the rest of the team feasted. And you saw that tonight with guys like Bobby Portis having a field day and getting super cocky while doing it. Grayson Allen, like I mentioned, also having a field day. Drew Holiday, even Pat Connaughton. I mean, here's the thing. You knew at some point the Bucks were going to finally start hitting their shots, unlike they did in the first 2 games. Like, they weren't just going to stay cold for the whole series. But you didn't think it was also going to happen on a night where the Bulls just looked like ass on offense. Patrick Williams, a guy we talked about needing to really be a big player in this series and be effective for the Bulls to be successful. 1 point tonight. 1 point. Guy shot 0 for 9, could not buy a basket. DeMar DeRozan, 11 points on 9 shot attempts. The Bucks had a game plan going into this one, and that was locking down DeMar at all costs. It also helps when you have one of the better defenders in the league and Drew Holiday guarding him on virtually all possessions. DeRozan was a minus 23 tonight and was completely ineffective on the court. Lavine, 6 for 13. He couldn't find a shot. Shot selection wasn't good yet again. 15 points. Vucevic was really the only player who played somewhat okay, if you want to call it that. 19 points on 8 for 17 shooting from the floor, but got absolutely outworked on the glass. 6 rebounds. 6 rebounds from your big man in a Game 3 of a tied playoff series. That being said, I guess we should have sort of seen this coming. When Middleton going out, the Bucks made adjustments and actually went bigger in their normal starting lineup, having Bobby Portis starting at the 4 and Giannis playing small forward. This is a massive lineup, and a lineup the Bulls simply cannot match up against. It was already tough to match up against these guys before. You have another big like Portis in the starting lineup with Lopez and Giannis. You're going to have an incredibly hard time corralling the ball over these guys in the paint. Still doesn't excuse the Bulls' piss poor effort, but more so saying this was an adjustment the Bulls simply didn't see in the first 2 games, and quite frankly, they weren't prepared for in this one. We've talked about it all season. Billy Donovan is not the best at making in-game adjustments. He's not. Like, Billy Donovan, I'll admit, did a great job of preparing the guys for this series based on the usual lineup construction and rotations that the Bucks usually make and focusing on the defensive end to counter them. But when he gets thrown a curveball, he doesn't really know how to adapt. And you saw that in full force tonight. Guys looked completely lost on defense when Portis was spreading the floor. Staying on guys like Grayson Allen, whether he was shooting from outside or driving to the bucket, just wasn't there. That's the other thing, the defensive effort, that tenacity for which they played in the first 2 games that enabled them to be so competitive and hang with the defending champions, wasn't there at all tonight. You saw it occasionally when the Bulls started making a few of those little runs, but really it was more of the same thing. When they get down by a big lead, they hang their heads, and the defense at that point becomes optional. Because hey, why defend when the game is becoming more and more out of reach? The Bulls also got no help from the bench tonight. Coby White was terrible, shooting 2 for 9, 1 for 6 from 3, was minus 19 from the floor. Io got more run, but most of that was in garbage time and really wasn't that effective when the game actually mattered. Hold up, did Tony Bradley really go 5 for 5 in the 6 minutes he played in garbage time and scored 10 points? Wow, of course, just of course. Look, here's the thing. I don't need to run through the box score. You guys all know this was a terrible game. A terrible effort and a completely embarrassing loss after having such a big win in game 2. How this Bulls team has these Jekyll and Hyde-like performances is something I just will never understand. And the fact that after 5 years of the fans at the United Center seeing their team in the playoffs for the first time, they came out and showed up like this in an utter embarrassment. And they deserve to be booed tonight, the multiple times that you heard it throughout the game. The city of Chicago and their fans expect so much more. Even if it's in a loss, you expect your team to not be an embarrassment on the biggest stage of basketball, especially when you're given an opportunity after taking home court advantage, and also the Bucks losing one of their key players. And you respond by coming out flat and made this game look like it was a varsity versus JV game. Anyway, I don't really have much more to say about this one. I mean, all we know is the Bucks, they've regained control. They've regained the momentum in the series. They responded like a championship team does after having a bad game at home, after losing one of their players, and coming out with energy, hunger, and grit to punch the Bulls in the mouth, and they did just that. My hope is that after having such a lackluster effort and a horrible loss, that this is the wake-up call for the Bulls to come back with just as much energy and effort, not even just because it's a must-win game. That alone should be enough for them to be hungry for a win, but also just to make up for such an abysmal effort in front of their hometown crowd and show that wasn't them. And give Bulls fans something to be proud of and cheered for in Game 4. That's my hope anyway, but maybe that's just too much to ask for. We'll have to wait and see. Game 4 is on Sunday, an early start at noon Central. Of course, I'll have a live chat for that game, and hopefully it'll be a little more lively than the one we had tonight. Until then, guys, as always, be sure to subscribe if you're a Bulls fan, as I do post daily Bulls content. Thanks again for tuning in, guys, and I'll catch you in the next one.